Long-time listener, first-time caller, go.
First-time caller.
Ultimate testosterone and ultimate mustaches.
Avataros, now with 10% more unobtainium.
Sorry I ruined the show.
His mustache is so fucking epic in this movie.
Tonka.
So anyways, Westerns.
So where should we start? With his mustache or what?
I have had a mustache.
Broadcasting live from inside the power band, this is The Blah. In this episode, everybody dies. I'm your host, the Wolverine, along with the intrepid Prototrope.
Hello.
And the elusive, mysterious Algorithm.
Hey guys, ask me what I had for breakfast.
Algorithm, what did you have for breakfast?
I had Hostess Donuts powdered donut cereal for breakfast, Wolverine.
Oh, clearly a recommendation from the Empty Bowl. Our good friends over at the Empty Bowl.
Correct. I received an import of it from a bottom rung of a shelf in a supermarket and could not resist, and it was delicious. That's all I have to say. That's all I have to say about that yet.
That's all I got to say about that.
That's all I have to say about that.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, that is pretty incredible, man. I'm really jealous, actually, because I can't eat cereal.
I can't either, but I did it anyways.
Good God. God bless you, boy. Whee! So anyway, folks, this week we've got something special for you on the podcast. We are diving into our first Western territory. We wanted to branch off and do a Western, and Jarhigo was kind enough to bring to the table the 1990 timeless classic Tombstone. So that's what we've chosen to do. This is going to be a self-driving bus this week. So let's dive right in.
How obsessed with Westerns were you guys?
Great question, Chad.
Not at all.
Not at all. Wow.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'd never really got into them, generally speaking.
As a kid, I would say definitely not. I think it wasn't until this movie came out and Wyatt Earp that I really got into Westerns. Unless there's a gap in my memory, I'm pretty sure these two were the ones. Because these came out 93, 94 respectively, Tombstone, Wyatt Earp, and I was probably, I don't know, 21, 22 maybe? No, not even 19, I don't know.
Just a pup.
Yeah, just, I don't know, the casts were so full of great actors, and I don't know, it just hooked me. And ever since then, I've definitely been into Westerns, so I love to see a really good one.
I feel like around the same time, there were a smattering of Westerns. You had Silverado and Young Guns. And
wait, Jarhigo. Hold on, you're right. Young Guns was the one that got me into Westerns. Yeah, that was it. It wasn't this one.
There you go.
It was Young Guns. And that was straight up 80s, but still really good.
Yeah, I think to quote a meme from Toy Story, I was more of a Buzz Lightyear kind of girl. I was way more space alien laser beams than Western. So it wasn't until I was like in my 20s that I even dipped my toe really into the Western thing. And I've never really gotten super into them, but I've always kind of had a weird aversion, or not aversion, but it's like I've always kind of not gotten into the period piece stuff too much. So I still appreciate them though. And this one was really good.
Yeah, I think for me, just to add on to what I said, like, we talked about in the Apocalypse Now episode how we were, when we were young and we were kids, we were always playing Vietnam. We were always playing war in the woods. So for me, the Westerns, like when Young Guns came out, it wasn't, that wasn't too far of a leap to go, from, the jungles of Vietnam to the Southwest or whatever.
Yeah, I more played with myself in the woods, if you know what I mean. So wasn't really a Western thing.
I know exactly what you mean, Chad.
Could have been anywhere, right?
Yeah. Sometimes Nam.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yes, sir. All right. Sometimes you were busting through the double doors of a saloon. Sometimes you were
sometimes I was busting somewhere else.
Coolie, I mean.
Exactly. Whoa. Hey, let's keep it clean, kid. This is a family podcast here, Chad. Come on.
Considering every fourth word is me dropping an F-bomb, I don't know about that whole family-friendly rating.
Well, you may be right about that. I just disallowed my children to listen to it because of your language in particular.
Fair enough.
And that was actually Jarhigo's suggestion. He was like, I don't think you should let your kids listen to Chad's horrible language.
It's not wrong.
Oh, man.
Oh, God.
So for the folks at home, we're going to be talking about two movies, or at least I am. We're going to be talking about Wyatt Earp because these two movies are very intertwined. I want to just say that at the outset. These movies were they were essentially one film that sprang into two. And we could get into that more later, or should I get into that now?
Yeah, why don't you dive right in, because I'm not really aware of this relationship.
It makes sense, because this is the genesis of Tombstone. So back in the day, after Kevin Costner made Dances with Wolves, he was on top of the world, and he was a very powerful player in Hollywood, as he had...
Don't you mean Avatar?
What?
It's Dances with Wolves is Avatar joke. Haha.
Huh.
And folks, we've got an early death in this week's
Early
podcast.
death.
C-Lab forever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Let's start this whole thing over.
Let's just start over.
Start right over.
Hi, folks. Welcome to episode 1 of The Empty Bowl, where we talk about
There you
cereal. Ask me what I had for breakfast this morning.
C-Lab, what did you have for breakfast this morning?
I had Avataros.
Did you choke on them and die by any chance?
Yeah, I did.
Ouch. That's gotta hurt.
Avataros, now with 10% more unobtainium.
Now, let me ask you a question, Jarhigo. Are those right next to Admiral Akbar's New England style clam chowder on the shelf, or is it faced somewhere else in another aisle?
No, man. One's in the cereal section, one's in the soup section. You know, it's
All right. I'm just making sure.
two different things.
Yeah.
Two brilliantly different things.
So anyways, Westerns.
Interesting. So just so everybody at home knows, this week's episode is sponsored by Avatar O's. Tombstone,
You're about to dive into telling us the relationship between
Avatar and
Tombstone and Wyatt Earp.
Tombstone and Wyatt Earp.
And Avatar.
So when Kevin Costner got done doing Dances with Wolves, that was funny. He got such a dick.
We're on a tight timeline here, guys. Let's keep going.
Okay, no, here's what's happening is that I just got stabbed to death right there, because this is the same thing that happened like last week with the Love Boat. Like I was trying to explain it, and you guys kept being like, "Wait, dude, that was Gopher. No, wait, that was Gilligan."
Oh my God.
I love it, man. I love it.
Like Julius Caesar just... And I just died. Okay.
Yeah, you died the shit out of that one.
Oh wow, we all just died. We're only like just a minute or two in, man.
Yeah. All right, it's official. We're all dead. Let's move on to talking about Westerns.
Died on Avatar. I love it. All right. Kevin Costner had supreme dominance over Hollywood after he... Dude, Jarhigo is choking.
I'm sorry.
Oh my God, man. We're all hopped up on the goofballs tonight.
That's it. I got powdered donuts flowing through my veins. So Kevin Costner, Whitney Houston, The Bodyguard. Yep.
No. I'm not falling for that trap again, dude.
Woo.
That's like the third time you've done it. You're like, okay, right. So Kevin Costner, go ahead.
The Bodyguard.
Kevin hates us now.
I don't hate you. If you're gonna do that though, you gotta say Tatanka like Graham Greene in Dances with Wolves.
I thought I did. Maybe not.
No, he goes Tatanka.
True that.
That's how it has to be said. If you're gonna rag me out like that. All right. So can I start now for real? Or
Yeah, for real. I'm over it.
Are you sure, Ben? I feel like Jarhigo's being sneaky.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm not. Very serious.
I forgot. Yeah, you're so serious. I forgot.
Okay,
I already
right,
forgot what
right.
I was talking about. I'm afraid to talk.
You were just saying Kevin Costner was a powerhouse.
Don't do that.
That's what you were saying.
I know that's what I was saying. So in the early 90s, after Dances with Wolves, Kevin Costner was the overlord of Hollywood. He had supreme dominance because of the performance of Dances with Wolves. Kevin Jarre, I think that's how you pronounce his name, had written the script for Tombstone. Now, this person had previously written the film Glory, which was a very popular film, one of my personal favorites. That's where Denzel won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, and rightly so. That movie was incredible. Also had Carrie Elwes in it, Dear Wesley. Kevin Jarre had written Glory and had, Glory did so well that they were going to give him his first directing project. That was going to be Tombstone, based on a script that he wrote. He pulled Costner in. Him and Costner disagreed quite a bit about what the focus of the story should be, whereas Kevin Jarre had clearly written the story sort of focusing on Tombstone and the gunfight at the OK Corral. Kevin Costner felt that the story should be about Wyatt Earp's life, from when he was a boy all the way up to and through Tombstone and the gunfight at the OK Corral. So what ended up happening was he left the project to go do his own Tombstone movie, which ended up being a biopic, as we now know, called Wyatt Earp.
Yeah, and I heard that they were like racing to they're racing to the box office to see who could get released first or something as well.
Well, it was quite a bit more than that, actually. What happened was Kurt Russell got pulled in to do it, and Costner utilized his considerable Hollywood muscle. He blocked every distribution channel for Tombstone, so they couldn't get it released. So they were forced to go with Buena Vista, which of course is owned by Disney. In retaliation for that, the Tombstone cast went to every single costume shop in Hollywood, and they rented and reserved every single Western piece of clothing that was in the town. I'm not even kidding.
What a dick move.
So the crew of Wyatt Earp had to go to costume shops in Europe to get pieces for the actors to wear. You know what? It was a dick move and it wasn't a dick move.
Dick moves in both directions, really.
Yeah, dick move in both directions, but Kurt Russell actually went on record as saying that he totally respected what Costner did. He's like, he had a huge amount of muscle at the time. He was playing hardball. I totally get it, yeah, and he used it. So that's how the two films were created. Costner and Wyatt Earp had a way bigger budget. I think it was about $63 million. Tombstone had a $25 million budget. Costner was able to get all the actors that he wanted. So it's not to say that Tombstone got the leftovers, but they did not. They were not commanding, what Kevin Costner could command. Clearly, Kevin Jarre, who wrote the script for Tombstone and was supposed to direct it, got let go. Don't know if it was after Kurt Russell came on board or before he came on board.
I can interject there. I saw that it was he shot the Charlton Heston scenes, and there's an interview with Kurt Russell where he was just kind of like, "Oh shit, we're in trouble," and then the guy got punted. Yeah,
he got punted, and they brought in George Cosmatos, who had previously directed in this episode Everybody Dies favorites, Cobra, and Rambo 2. He was basically brought in as a yes man, and Kurt Russell was essentially directing this film, giving George the shot list every single night, and then George would make that happen the next day. And he said, "I will keep this secret as long as you are alive." And he did just that. George Cosmatos died in, I think, 2007, and then it wasn't until many years later that Kurt Russell finally copped to it. But Val Kilmer has backed this whole thing up in numerous interviews. So yeah, that was the genesis of the two films. And then, ironically enough, Wyatt Earp was longer. Tombstone runs about 2 hours. Wyatt Earp runs 3 hours plus. And it is, in fact, the story about Wyatt Earp from when he was a kid all the way through Tombstone till the end of his life, essentially. And
is it any good?
Well, I personally think it's great. I'll get to that in a second. Tombstone, $25 million budget. They did about 60 to 75 million. So it was a smash. It came out before Wyatt Earp. Tombstone came out December of 1993, and Wyatt Earp ended up coming out in June of 1994. So there really was a race to the box office. The winner was Tombstone. They made more money on the film. Wyatt Earp's budget was about $63 million. They only made $25 million, which is a shame because Wyatt Earp is a great film. And I encourage any Western fan out there, certainly any fan of this show, to go and check it out because I think it's fantastic. I just watched it over the last couple of days and I absolutely love it. And I'm going to talk more about why I loved it as we go through the course of the show. So that's my opening salvo. When do you guys want to jump in somewhere?
Wait, so Kev, you're telling me that you're hijacking our Tombstone podcast?
I wouldn't say that exactly. I said at the beginning, you can't talk about one without talking about the other. So
I can.
Definitely going to. I'm going to talk about Wyatt Earp while we talk about Tombstone as well, because there's a lot of great similarities to both films.
I suppose I didn't realize that it was how much they were trying to stick to the true-ish nature of the story. When I wrapped it up and started reading a little bit about it, it made me appreciate the film much more, realizing that they were trying to stick to a lot of historical, or at least like historically relevant stories, as opposed to like just writing something out of whole cloth.
Sure. You're talking about Tombstone.
Yep.
Tombstone, yeah, they actually pulled stuff from like old newspapers, and
Yeah.
granted, how accurate any of that was.
Yeah, but it wasn't just some dude sitting at a typewriter.
Right.
Well, no, they interviewed a lot of old timers as well, like from old timer Western guys, guys that had been in Westerns, and talked to people that were like Western recreationists, like Civil War recreationists, the same type of thing. So yeah, they were really trying to make it true to form. I was watching the behind the scenes. I have the Blu-ray, and I was watching that, and George Cosmatos was talking about how he wanted to make it more colorful. The Wild West is often depicted as this like grayscale or sepia kind of color palette, and that's not really the way it was. Like, there were a lot of bright colors used and worn by people, but the old Westerns, like when Westerns were really popular in the 50s, they weren't doing that. A lot of stuff was in black and white. So, they really wanted to make it, utilize color more in all of the costumes. In addition to that, he was saying how, he wanted to have like the manure from the horses on the street, like really make it as authentic as possible. And I think that they did a really good job of that.
Yeah. It didn't even dawn on me, the black and white history, because I'm obviously so used to seeing color films now that I didn't even twig it until you just said it, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, right? It was always like blacks and whites, and it's like, people wore colors, purple, blue. Like, it was a sign of, they were talking about this in the behind the scenes, it was a sign of your status, how well you dressed,
Yeah,
so
you could afford the dyed clothes or whatever.
Exactly, man. So if you had like a really bright purple scarf, it's like you wore it proudly, man. That was like, that was like having a pimped ride, bro.
Yeah.
What? It was.
No, I just imagine like Exhibit, doing makeovers and making people wear like really bright clothes, and it made me laugh. Pimp my cowboy.
We can get into the casting here and in a somewhat response to the Wyatt Earp thing. This is a pretty fucking who's who of like, that era's sort of, action film guys, etc. I mean, it's a great cast.
It's kind of like an ungettable cast, really. It was amazing they got all those people.
Yeah, so I find it a little hard to believe that the Tombstone got the leftovers. Like,
you know what though? I mean, think about it, man. A lot of those, like, there was some definite firepower in the cast of Tombstone, but a lot of those guys that played some of the like second tier roles, like, they were earlier in their careers. Like, you talk about Thomas Hayden Church now, and it's like everybody knows who he is, but back then, not so much. Same thing with John Corbett. Same thing with Rooker.
Yondu. Same
thing with Billy Bob.
Right.
Same thing with, what's her name? She ended up going on to do Deadwood with Powers Booth. Paula Malcolmson, I think her name was. She played one of the Earp's wives. Sorry.
Yeah.
Jason Priestley was, kind of
flavor of the month.
I don't know. He was an interesting choice in that movie, but I was really glad he was in that movie. Ditto Billy Zane, ditto Dana Delaney. Like Dana Delaney was like great, you know. She was Powers Booth. Come on, Michael Biehn. He had just been doing like, you know, Terminator and like, you know, all those films. Heston, also big actor at that point.
Or maybe it was more like, you know, Costner threw his fucking toys out of the pram and went and made his own thing, and it was great or whatever. But I saw like an interview, I think, with Val Kilmer that was saying like they didn't make many Westerns around that time, so everyone jumped on board when they were like, hey, there's a Western, because everyone wants to get involved with a Western. So it ended up with a strong-ass cast, man. Like you said, Benny.
Oh my God. Seriously strong. Stephen Lang as Ike Clanton. I mean, everybody knows who Stephen Lang is. I mean, I think Avatar really like...
Yeah, back to Avatar. This is my jam.
I was just waiting for somebody to bring up Stephen Lang. Oh, man.
Anyway, like I think Avatar really... I think Avatar expanded his public profile, is the way to say it.
Yeah, I didn't know who he was.
I don't think anybody did. It actually took me years to figure out who the actor was. And it wasn't until after I saw Avatar that I watched this film again. And I was like, holy Jesus, man, that's Stephen Lang. And then, of course, you had Robert Mitchum as the narrator, you know? So this is a really good cast. Terry O'Quinn.
Now you're just making shit up.
Everybody probably best... No, I'm not. I think everybody probably knows him best from Lost.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, Terry O'Quinn's been in like a zillion million movies.
Friend of the show, Lost.
Yeah, he's one of those guys I know I've seen in a bunch of shit, but I can never place exactly what.
Exactly pinpoint what it is. Yeah.
Like Billy Zane, for instance.
Dude, Billy Zane. I love Billy Zane. It was a perfect role for Billy Zane.
It was very Billy Zane. So yeah, what's another funny, weird story about this? Apparently they were gunning to get Willem Dafoe to play Doc Holliday.
Yeah.
But because they ended up going with Disney as a distributor, they were like, no, fuck that, because he had just come off of Passion of the Christ.
That's right.
Last Temptation.
Last Temptation of Christ. Thank you. Sorry. Jesus Christ.
Oh, good. Oh, Jesus.
Literally.
Literally Jesus.
Literally
Oh, wow.
Jesus.
Who was in Passion of the Christ?
Caviezel, Jim Caviezel.
Jim Caviezel.
Caviezel.
Okay, so here's a weird connection. Jim Caviezel played Warren Earp in Wyatt Earp.
Hey.
Do.
All right. Perfect segue. Benny, I would like to propose an addition to the Batman continuum. We all know how much Jar Ego likes the Batman continuum, and it turns out that Adam West played Doc Holliday in the 50s, and Batman Forever director Joel Schumacher saw Kilmer playing Doc Holliday in this movie and cast him as Batman as a result. So I just want to bring to the table that if it wasn't for Doc Holliday, there would not have been Batman. So similar to the Joker, he gave birth to it.
Not only that, Chad, but Adam West played Doc Holliday in not one, not two, but three different Western shows.
Yeah.
Love it. Not one, not two, but three.
But three.
So the Batman continuum continues.
Yeah. Doc Holliday and Batman, they're like, you know, two sides of the same coin.
That's it. Maybe the new Twilight Batman will be, he'll have tuberculosis.
The new Twilight Batman. What?
Yeah, dude, there's a new Batman with Dingleberry from Twilight. He's going to be Batman.
Oh, that's great.
Who? Edward the Penitent?
Edward Furlong.
Robert Pattinson is going to play Batman?
Yeah, he is Batman.
Ugh. Wow. No.
But to circle back to the continuum, Doc Holliday gave birth to Batman, and by God was Val Kilmer the most amazing part of this movie. He really sold the whole fucking thing for me, being a first-time viewer.
Yeah.
You just watched this for the first time?
That was my first viewing of the movie.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I enjoyed it, like, as I was watching it. I got about, I don't know, halfway through, and I was like, yeah, all right, this is all right. Don't really understand why we're bringing it to the table, but as it sunk in more and as, you know, the performances kind of continued, and especially the Doc Holliday, Wyatt Earp kind of relationship towards the end, it just cemented it as a really good film. So I understood much more clearly why we wanted to talk about it. But it was interesting being a first-time viewer.
I didn't realize that you were a first-time viewer. Why don't you give us some more of your impressions of it?
First-time caller.
Long-time listener, first-time caller, go.
I think initial impressions for me were just being pretty blown away with the cast, like especially early in the movie, Billy Bob Thornton's kind of cameo, for lack of a better word. It's just like, shit, man, this is a strong cast. So that was definitely number one. Number two is more like, it's got to be number two would be Val Kilmer.
I'm your huckleberry.
He was just fantastic, absolutely fantastic, and really made it for me up until I kind of got more engaged with the story, later in the film. And then number three would be, as it sunk in, it got better and better. And like the aftertaste of the film really helped it, and reading up about it a bit even further cemented it as a good film. So it's pretty high level, but that's kind of my initial impressions.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah. Those are very similar to my impressions. I think what cemented the film for me when I first saw it was Val Kilmer's performance as Doc Holliday. He's just, I don't think anybody really knows what Doc Holliday was really like, but his interpretation of it was such an interesting character, very memorable in all ways. And just all the little, I don't know how much of this was like his idea or if it was scripted or what, but that whole thing between Doc Holliday and Johnny Ringo, where they first meet in the casino, and Ringo does his thing with the pistols, he does his like little spinning routine, and then how Doc Holliday comes back with his little silver cup and just like starts spinning his little silver cup around. It's like fucking perfect. It's such a great scene.
And it was such a great way to disarm the tension of the scene too. Like everyone's giggling and even Ringo giggles, I thought that was great.
Yeah, excellent.
I'll throw a little nugget in about that scene. I watched a great interview with Michael Biehn a day or two ago, and he was talking about that scene. And he learned how to do the pistol tricks, the spinning. But he said, and he was pretty proud of this fact, he said it was really hard to do. I didn't always get it right, but he said when he did it sideways, so like when the gun was spinning...
Parallel to the ground.
Yeah, exactly. Parallel to the ground, not in its like, normal orientation. He said he came up with that. That was his thing. He was like, I did that. I thought that was really cool. I've always loved Michael Biehn ever since The Terminator, obviously. I think he's a great actor, sort of an underrated actor. And I thought that was a really cool nugget.
Yeah, totally. I kind of looked at, just real quick, I looked into Michael Bihn's kind of filmography after this, and it was Tombstone was kind of one of the last major things for him. Like it was Aliens and Terminator and this, and then it just kind of petered off after that to kind of seemingly bit parts and stuff. So it's a shame because he was a really good actor.
He really was. He did The Seventh Sign, I think that's what it was, or The Seventh Seal with Demi Moore. It was about like sort of the end of the world.
Yeah.
Like biblical film. That was a pretty big film. Exactly. Underrated actor. That's why I said it.
Yeah. Come to speak of people who really stood out in the film, I thought Michael Biehn did a great job as Johnny Ringo. Apparently, they were trying to get Mickey Rourke to do that role, and he turned it down. I don't know. I really like Michael Biehn in that role. I can't imagine Mickey Rourke pulling it off the same way.
Yeah.
I would go so far as to say, Jarhigo, that this is Michael Bihn's best film. That's his best performance. Like, he's so good in it.
He's such a staple of like a bunch of great 80s films, though, I mean, we've said The Terminator, we've said Aliens, The Abyss, like he's in a bunch of great stuff.
Oh, yeah, The Abyss, yeah. I loved him in The Abyss.
Ooh, The Abyss. Yeah, he was great in The Abyss.
Yeah, and he's I thought he was always good. And it is kind of a shame that he sort of fell off, and I don't know if that was Hollywood doing Hollywood's thing, or if that was just him like wanting to do other stuff, or what the story was with that. But I really enjoyed him in this film. I'm surprised he hasn't like turned up in like a Tarantino movie or something, like something like that.
I know, right? Yeah.
Or fucking Stranger Things. He should be on Stranger Things. Should be another one of those guys that they like pull out of like the 80s to do a role,
Oh, wait. Oh, Jarhigo. Yeah, Jarhigo. You got your wish, dude. He was in Grindhouse.
Oh, shit. Okay.
He played the sheriff in Planet Terror.
Okay, so That's not the Kurt Russell one. That's the one with the...
No, that
Do I
was
have
the
that wrong?
Rodriguez one. So no, you're right. The Rodriguez one was Planet Terror, and the Tarantino one was Death Proof.
Death Proof, that's right.
I'm pretty sure that's right. He was in the Rodriguez one, so that's as close to a Tarantino film as he got. I didn't really weigh in on Val Kilmer. And I've seen this film. I've seen Tombstone, I don't know, probably 30 or 40 times. And here's, well, watching it in 2019 this week, here's what I have to say about Kilmer. I distilled it into one sentence.
Baba, proceed, sir.
This movie had less of a budget than Wyatt Earp. It had a great cast, even though Wyatt Earp, quote unquote, had the better cast because Kevin Costner could get whoever he wanted because he was such a name at that time. And this movie definitely has, the fact that they fired the director, they got George Cosmatos to come in. Kurt Russell was directing this movie clandestinely, and he sacrificed, from what I understand, what I read, a lot of his own scenes and lines and had to give them up to other actors because he was doing that. And you can see in Tombstone, all the parts with Dana Delaney and Kurt Russell, like the music is really cheesy. And there's some scenes that are a little janky in Tombstone. And when I watch Wyatt Earp, I can see where that extra money went. Like the quality of the costumes and the scenery it's even more polished. And there were definitely, I could see where they had to skimp sometimes in Tombstone. But what I ended up coming up with about Kilmer for this movie was Kilmer is so good. He elevates weak scenes with his incredible skill. He puts so much time and energy into this character. I watched a great interview with Kilmer, and he talked about where he came up with that accent. And he called this dialect coach that he worked with, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I should have written it down. And he asked him about, what did a Southern gent sound like at that time? And that's where he came up with that accent. And he used a variation of that accent again when he did The Saint years later, with Elizabeth Shue. And that's where he came up with that. And he really put so much energy and detail into that character. And he was so invested 100% in it that even the few scenes and spots in Tombstone that are a little bit weaker, Kilmer's performance just elevates it right back up. And that's how great Kilmer is in this movie.
Yeah, it's an incredible performance from good old Val, who is, he's one of my faves. I love Val and the work he's done in a bunch of movies. He definitely does elevate the movie. And I know where you're coming from with some of the weak scenes, and you talked about the love thing with Wyatt Earp and Josephine. That whole thing didn't really sell very well for me.
It doesn't. I think there were it's funny, like I'm gonna do a little like comparison between Wyatt Earp and Tombstone right now, but like they explore that relationship in both films. They have more time to flesh it out because she's a major part of his life, and she becomes a major part of his life until the end. And the way it's explored and fleshed out in Wyatt Earp is definitely better than in Tombstone. That said, there are parts of what they did with it in Tombstone that are better than what they did in Wyatt Earp. It was a little janky, and like every single time she comes into the frame and they're together, that music played, and I was like, oh, please, not again. Like by the end of the film, I was like, oh God, I can't bear another thrashing. I just, I was like, no, I can't again. Anyway, Dana Delaney, I think she's great. And it's a shame because she did a really good job playing Josephine Marcus in that movie. And there was a couple of scenes that they do have together, like when they do the horse chase.
And you swear you're looking at
and they sort of throw down a blanket and talk about stuff after that. Like there's some really great stuff going on there, and it's a shame that they had to cut more of that. And it's interesting too, like they had more time to explore that in Wyatt Earp, and Joanna Going, who plays the same character in Wyatt Earp, like they both do the same amazing job with this character, and they both are able to bring like different elements to it. And it's really cool to like see how the different actors compare in these two films. So I would encourage both of you to watch Wyatt Earp at least one time.
Check it out.
I've seen it, but the thing is, and I'm jogging my memory here, and it's not very good because I've always been on Team Tombstone, because Tombstone is like a movie, it's a Western, where I feel like Wyatt Earp is more of a film. You know what I mean? It's longer. It's more. It's just they're apples and oranges. And this doesn't always happen to me, but sometimes when I see two films that are of similar subject matter or whatever have you, I fall into one camp more than I do the other, which kind of just excludes the other altogether. And that's really where I come down on this one. And it's
So is it like a Star Trek, Star Wars kind of thing, or is it more of a?
I'm both Star Trek and Star Wars personally. I'm not one or the other. It's not the right comparison, and I can't really think of another one. It's not like an Elvis Beatles thing. It's not. I don't know. It's just a thing. But for me, a lot of why I come down on Team Tombstone is because it's like a sentimental factor, I guess. It's like, I don't know. The time that it came out or whatever. I remember it was like, a movie that my dad and I would always talk about because we were both enamored with Val Kilmer's performance. Like my dad thought it was his Doc Holliday was so cool, and I did too. And like, it's like anytime I would go home for the holidays or whatever, it's like we'd inevitably end up talking about that movie, he would bust out like you'd be a daisy if you did.
Or a daisy if you do.
Or something like, oh God, here we go, like. So I think that has a lot to do with it. So that's not really that's like an emotional reason more than a real critical reason, but that's why this movie resonates with me more than Wyatt Earp does.
Sure. And I think that where you're going, like your reasoning is really more of like what you said at the very beginning. Like they're really two different films. And Tombstone is the Hollywoody film.
Yeah.
And Wyatt Earp is a biopic. I mean, that's essentially what it is. It's up there it's in the same category as like the Churchill movie that just came out, or the Jackie Kennedy movie that came out a couple of years ago with Natalie Portman, or, the zillion other biopic films like the Nixon one that Anthony Hopkins did.
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Or Bohemian Rhapsody, exactly. So you're right. It is more of a biopic for sure. And it certainly is very long. I'm a fan of both films. I want to just circle back for a second to comment on what Chad said. Star Wars, Star Trek, that's not the right comparison. I know what Ben is talking about. There's oftentimes you will get a certain type of film that will be coming out, and then another film exactly like it will be, or on the same subject matter, will come out right around it. And this has happened so many times. The Prestige and The Illusionist.
Right.
The Abyss, Deep Star 6, and Leviathan all came out within the same, like a year of each other. And they were all underwater creature adventure movies.
Yeah. The worst example ever, because I think both movies are abysmal, but Armageddon and I don't know, what the hell was the other one? The two asteroid movies that came out.
Yeah.
Deep Impact or something?
Deep Impact, yeah. Deep Impact. Oh, I'm not going to make that joke. That's too sexual. Never mind. Armageddon and Deep Impact. Also, take your pick. Commando, Rambo, Cobra, Raw Deal. That might have been more of like an Arnold Stallone thing, but
yeah, definitely.
There's just a lot of duos, and in the case of the Undersea Monster movies trio of films that they come out, and it's like all of a sudden there's another movie just like it or very similar to it, and sort of magically appears. I remember when The Prestige came out, and then it was like all of a sudden there was an Edward Norton film about magic sort of taking place in around the same time period or close to that. And I was like, that's so odd, and it's like,
yeah,
I get what you're saying about being, no, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Speaking specifically to The Illusionist and The Prestige, I didn't get to see either of those movies until like a couple years after they came out. And I had the two of them completely confused. Like, I didn't know which one was which.
Interesting.
Yeah. I had this weird 1800s magic people
Sort of
like all fucked up in my
transposition thing.
head. What's that?
Like transposing thing, like a transposition thing where you were like, oh yeah, that was with Hugh Jackman and Edward Norton. And then you're like,
Totally.
no, wait, it was with Christian
Exactly.
Bale and Edward Norton. No, wait.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was with Michael Caine.
Oh, Mike O'Kane. So,
Michael Caine.
so what I'm hearing is Tombstone is Turner and Hooch, whereas
Ooh.
Wyatt Earp is more of a canine with James Belushi. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Damn, dude. Another one. That was nice. Turner and Hooch and Canine.
Damn.
Wow.
That was good, man.
Jimmy Google passed me a note on that one.
Did he? Can we do like a special Patreon episode of that? Turner and Hooch versus Canine?
Let's do it.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I think I've seen both of those, but
That's interesting that they got mixed up, though. Like,
they've been filed away.
that's an interesting point.
Wow, the fact that Ben has seen them both is a little disturbing. I've seen neither.
I'm not sure if I have or haven't. That's what I'm saying.
I didn't say that. I did not say that. Senator, I have no recollection of that event.
I don't recall that.
I don't recall. That's the old Potomac two-step, folks, for all you people out there that don't know.
I don't recall that.
There you have it.
That's my terrible Ronald Reagan impersonation, everybody.
I like
That
it.
was pretty terrible, but I like it at the same time.
If this was a video podcast, I'd have the Land of Confusion Ronald Reagan puppet play over that.
Ooh, I like that, man.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. That would be it.
So circling back on track, I really appreciate your point of view, Ben, about Wyatt Earp. It is the biopic to the sort of Hollywood action movie.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right about that.
It was Kevin Costner's vision of what Tombstone was supposed to be.
I totally agree with you.
But do you feel as though like the major difference is the ensemble cast versus, it obviously being really focused on Wyatt Earp in Wyatt Earp, or is it more than that in terms of the Hollywoodness for you, Ben?
I think they're just very different types of movies, and I think Kev put it about as well as you could put it. Wyatt Earp is a biopic, and Tombstone is just a Western. It's just like a Hollywood, kind of semi-action movie type thing.
Popcorn movie.
Yeah, it's a popcorn film, and that's what I like about it. That's what I'm looking for in a Western. I'm not looking for like a really serious story about.
You're not looking for tender feelings?
No, I'm not. I want to love it and leave it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Hey, I want to love it and leave it.
All right.
You know what I'm talking about.
But that's interesting because what just jumped into my mind was like There Will Be Blood, which is set in a Western setting, but is not a Western at all. So like it kind of makes sense that like a Western is its own thing, and it's like the old school action movie, and you want it to hit a certain set of tropes versus the biopic or the movie set in the Old West, etc. So it's a good point.
Right. Yeah.
True. And I mean, if we had infinite amounts of time, we could talk about what defines a Western, because there's a few modern Westerns out there that are like
Wild Wild
really
West?
great.
Like Wild Wild West with Will Smith?
No. Set in modern times that are Westerns.
Oh.
Like
Kevin Kline?
No Country for Old Men and Hell or High Water.
Oh, yeah. And Men in Black.
Oh man.
Oh, man. I'm sorry I ruined the show. Speaking of infinite time, I kind of feel like this movie, if you could snap your fingers and like teleport the cast to today, I think it would have really benefited from like a Netflix style miniseries 4 or 5 episode treatment, or even like a single season of a show. Like if that was possible back in the mid to late 90s or whenever this came out, it would have been interesting to see it have a bit more of an opportunity to flesh it out. I would have liked to have seen it.
I don't know. I'm gonna kind of have to go back to what Jarhigo was saying about this film. Like, I still want it to be a Hollywood Western. So I think my response to that would be no, just give it a little bit more money and a little bit more time. and it would just give it the polish it needed, maybe straighten out some of the scenes with Josephine Marcus, Dana Delaney, whatever. And that's what I would do to it, because it's like, I don't know, you don't really want to mess with it a lot, because it's, I feel like they were kind of the underdog. Like, you know, Costner was like, I'm going to go make my big Wyatt Earp movie. And they were like the scrappy underdog. And Kurt Russell was like, now I got to direct it. And it was like, they did it, man. They dialed it in. They had like 2/3 less the money, and they made it happen. And they made it great. And it ended up becoming like the favorite film of the two. Nobody talks about Wyatt Earp ever, period. I love it. I think it's a great movie. I think it's even more period accurate in terms of like, when you watch it, like the cleanliness of the people, like everybody's hair looks really greasy, as it should. Bill Pullman gets shot. There's powder burns all over his chest right around the wound. And that was period accurate as well. Like just like little things like that. But even still, nobody talks about Wyatt Earp. Everybody talks about Tombstone. And a lot of that is like anchored around Kilmer's performance. Like he really elevated that film. But Kilmer being said, the movie's great because it's got a stellar cast of like some really great actors. So it's like, I wouldn't really want to mess with it too much. Just tweak it a little bit. That's my answer.
There's evidently a whole bunch of footage, and Kurt Russell was asked if he wanted to do a recut, and he said maybe someday. It'd be interesting to see if they end up doing the like Apocalypse Now final cut, and whether it takes away from the original or not, you know, like you were saying. Don't want to mess with it.
Oh, yeah. I dig that. I would love to see a Kurt Russell ultimate cut of this movie.
I think that'd be great.
Ultimate testosterone and ultimate mustaches.
Yeah.
Those were all real mustaches, by the way. 100% real. Every single mustache in that film was earned the old-fashioned way. Can
we use that as a mini segue to briefly talk about Bill Paxton's mustache, because we missed him when we talked about the cast?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if we ever finished talking about it, but
we haven't finished really talking about the cast.
It's been a herky-jerky episode of jumping around a lot.
I just love Bill Paxton, and around that time period, he'd had the whole like, they're gonna come in here, man, and kill us, man, kind of soft, weird, hectic cast member in so many films, and I thought it added an interesting sprinkling of flavor to the ensemble. You didn't really need like 17 tough guys. It was nice to kind of have, you know, Billy Zane as a bit of a dandy, and Jason Priestley is a bit of a dandy, and then Bill Paxton is kind of like wanting to be like his big brother, but then finally killing somebody and feeling bad about it. It was it was a really great way to flesh out the whole story.
Being the greenhorn Earp, as it were.
Yeah, exactly.
He Bill Paxton the shit out of that, man. He was great.
He really did, and he's the perfect person for that role, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, he really brought a lot of levity to like the whole thing. He had like kind of a lighter tone. He was like believed in spiritualism and like, you know, all that stuff. Like he said, he was like, I just do what my big brother does, bro. You know, bro. You know, like back your brother's play, bro. You know, bro. And, you know, when you, like, again, you know, like when you watch Wyatt Earp, Lyndon Ashby plays the same character in Wyatt Earp, and he does a really good job, and he does it different. And it's like equally good, but different.
I even just like the spiritual conversation where he's talking about the light at the end of the tunnel, standing in the middle of the town square, and how that sets up for his death was really, really pretty powerful too. Like his death scene is pretty awesome.
Oh my God.
They got the road sign to hell too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. In fact, I made 2 mental notes about the death scenes. His death scene and Val Kilmer's death scene were just stellar.
Remember what I said about seeing a light when you're dying? Yeah. It ain't true. I can't see a damn thing.
Morgan's death scene was really good. It was intense, you know, the dog barking and like just like the people and like, you know, the blood, my God, the blood everywhere. There's just no place to put it, nothing to soak it up with. Like, does anybody have a sponge? No, those weren't invented yet. Maybe. But yeah, just really, really intense. Really good stuff. You know, the whole rainy night, the thunder, the lightning, like, yeah, that was great. That whole sequence was really great.
Everybody was terrific in this film. I really loved Powers Booth in this one too.
Hey, Wyatt! How the hell are you?
He didn't telegraph the shit out of it, but there was something subtly, scary about Curly Bill. There's something, yeah, it wasn't, like so many. I mean, I like a good over the top bad guy, right? Just like the rest of us, like that can be a great way to play it. But the way Powers Booth played Curly Bill was subtle. There was something lurking beneath the surface that was going on. There's that great scene where he does a rip of, this is when the shit hits the fan, I guess. But when he does a rip of opium, I'm assuming it's opium, and then he's fucked up, and he's just like, ooh, yeah, and he just goes out and starts causing trouble. I love that scene. He just plays that really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, the subtlety of his evil undertones, kind of in a different way, but it kind of reminds me of Chigurh from No Country, where he's just terrifying. So it's a rare actor that can make a character subtly scary, I find.
Yeah, Powers Booth, man, Yeah, that guy's awesome. Jarhigo, do we need to talk about Sam Elliot?
Dude, we always got to talk about Sam Elliot.
Exactly. So where should we start, with his mustache or what?
His mustache is so fucking epic in this movie.
Right? I mean, my God, dude.
It is just out of control. It was like he had a mustache, and then this mustache ate his old mustache and just hulked out on his face.
Totally, man. Hulked out, got injected with gamma radiation.
Yeah.
And the mustache is actually the actual director of the film. So what really happened was Kevin Jarre wrote the script. He was supposed to do his directorial debut on this film. Didn't work out. They were sayonara, pulled cut. Kurt Russell comes in. He's like, dude, I can do it, but I can't. I'm going to get George Cosmatos. And really behind the curtain is Sam Elliott's mustache directing the film. Boom.
Yeah, I was going to say the second, right behind Val Kilmer, the best performance is Sam Elliott's mustache.
Right. And then after that is Sam Elliot.
After that, Sam Elliot.
I love how you said Sam Elliott's mustache hulks out, considering that he was Thunderbolt Ross in Ang Lee's Hulk.
He was, in which he didn't have a mustache.
That's right.
Rah. Because it left. It left to make Tombstone.
Wait, no.
It sometimes moonlights in,
I don't think so.
Other directorial.
I think he did have a mustache in Ang Lee's Hulk.
Can
we get a screen grab? Because Jimmy Google around. Is there somebody that can do this?
I didn't think he had a mustache in that, but...
Oh, yeah, there's a stash there.
Yeah, I knew it.
What? Okay, well then he was in something around the same time where he didn't have a mustache.
Okay. I think that's officially a death, man. You can't be wrong about Sam Elliott's mustache and not die.
Fine, I'm fucking dead then.
Fine, I'm dead.
He was in another military role where he didn't have a mustache, and I can't fucking remember what it is. If it's not Ang Lee's Hulk, then I don't know what it is.
Fair enough. I just expect Jarhigo to know because he is a mustache aficionado. He's a mustachioed man, Jarhigo is all about mustaches.
I have had a mustache once or twice.
You're somewhat of an expert in a sort of hobby kind of way about mustaches as well,
It's a thing that I like to do in my spare time.
Yeah,
for fun.
Right on.
You know what needs to happen is there needs to be a mustache podcast. That would get a lot of people, I reckon.
Man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's now that, especially since mustaches are so hot right now,
Like Hansel.
Yeah, dude.
Hansel's
so hot right now. So I would never, ever, ever dare to claim that I've had a mustache, even in the same universe, in the same cinematic universe as Sam Elliott. However, I did grow a mustache at one point that I did not groom well, and it came down over my lip like Sam Elliott's mustache in this film. And I have to say, getting soup and food in your mustache via having to lick it off your lips is the most disgusting thing ever. And kudos to Sam Elliott for having such an epic mustache in this film. That would have been a soupy mess.
It's just out of control. Yeah.
Totally, man. It is exactly what Ben said. The thing is like totally hulked out.
Yeah, it's sentient.
It was like it came down the pike that everybody was going to have to grow a mustache for this movie because literally like every male actor besides Billy Zane, I think, and Thomas Hayden Church has a fucking mustache in this movie, right? Like every one of them. So it's like it came down the pipe that everybody was going to grow a mustache, and Sam Elliott was like, well, hell, I'm not going to be undone. I mean, I'm going to grow me a mustache. And he just fucking went like, you know, I don't know. Like I said, he fed his mustache to some, you know, diabolical mutant mustache, and the thing just fucking exploded on his face.
Yeah, he started tensing and focusing, and his two things happened. His shirt ripped right off his body without him touching it, and then his mustache grew.
Sam Elliott was just straining really hard, like
Yeah, like Dragon Ball Z.
Veins were like popping out in his forehead, and his mustache is just like coming out of his face like a Play-Doh fun fact.
Exactly like that, Ben. Exactly.
It's straight up Super Saiyan Dragon Ball Z mustache.
The other thing that was really interesting is that when all the other actors like signed on to this movie or found out they were going to be in this movie, and they were like, oh, I got to grow a mustache, they immediately thought, who am I going to call? Sam Elliott. So they all called Sam Elliott, and Sam Elliott was like, don't worry, I'm in the movie. I'll be on the set every day. So he was sort of like, he was kind of like the mustache master on this film, not unlike a wig master in a theatrical production or a film.
Yeah.
He was the mustache master.
I don't know this for sure, but yeah, I like to think he was like the mustache sensei on set, you know, like people were, you know, like, look, I gotta trim this thing. Like, what do you think, Sam? You know, and like he would give them some, you know, pointers, like, you know, tell them how to do it right.
Absolutely. I wish I could do a good Sam Elliott impression, Jar Hugo, and I just can't. I don't even want to try because I don't want to, you know, sort of do him any kind of injustice by doing it poorly.
Yeah, I can't do it universally. I used to have one of those narration monologues from Big Lebowski memorized, but
like Los Angeles or whatever.
I couldn't pull it up right now. Yeah, that stuff.
I love that guy. I picture him kind of like being the sensei in the Western sense of the word, where like somebody would come onto set with a fucked up mustache, and he would like pull out his 6-shooter and like shoot it, and the mustache would, like the bullet would like trim the hairs, you know? He'd be like, that's better. And stick the thing back in his belt. That's kind of what I picture.
Yeah. I want to see a series of animated shorts.
Yeah.
Based on this whole thing of Sam Elliott being like the mustache sensei. I love it.
Before we transition away from the cast, I just want to pour out a little liquor for Yondu and for Billy Bob Thornton, but we don't need to talk about them.
Okay, let's talk about Rooker.
I love Rooker.
Rooker had a great part, dude. Sherman McMasters was key to the story, and I love that he had like a solid little role in that movie. Yeah, I always loved Rooker. I'm not like one of these like, oh, I loved him since Yondu and shit people.
That's
I'm not
me.
like that. I was down with Rooker from like 93. Before 93, bitch. What?
Yeah, I was down with Rooker since Mallrats.
Oh, true
Thank you.
True that. Shit pretzels.
Yeah. Shit pretzels.
But Mallrats came out after this, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have to admit that I was surprised to see Rooker in this. I didn't remember that he played that part. And then, of course, you know, after watching it this most recent time, I was like, holy fuck, that's Rooker. Oh my God, he's got like curly, longish hair. Like, what the fuck? So, yeah, Rooker's always great, man. Love that guy.
Yeah, Rooker's awesome, man. And I mean, this is like right before Billy Bob was like sort of coming to prominence. Like he had done, I think this is around the same time he was doing Hearts of Fire, but Billy Bob did this, and like his performance is so memorable. The whole scene is so memorable. My favorite part is when Val Kilmer goes, "Oh, Johnny, I'm sorry, I forgot you were there."
Johnny, I apologize. I forgot you were there. You may go now.
I guess that whole scene in the casino with Billy Bob was all ad-libbed by him too, which is interesting.
Yeah, they just told him to be a bully.
Yeah.
So he literally came up with everything he was doing in there.
It's good stuff. I just liked it. I liked it as a first-time viewer. I liked it in the sense that like it showed how much of a hard ass Wyatt Earp was and how he could just like sniff out bullshit as opposed to him just being like a gun toting, Western rootin' tootin' cowboy the whole time. He was just like smelled bullshit, gave the guy a slap on the face, and just like threw him out on his ear. It was a well received kind of intro to his tough guy.
Well, he's like, you get a taste of that straight away when they get off the train and the guy is unloading his horse and he's hitting the horse and he grabs the rope from the guy and he slaps him in the face and he goes, "Hurts, don't it?"
Oh yeah.
And then he takes the horse.
And he takes the horse and sends that dude packing. He goes, "Go about your business."
My question is, was that his horse that the guy was mistreating, or did he just decide to take the horse?
Well, that's the beauty of the scene and this podcast, Ben, is that it was now.
Yeah. Oh, man.
That's a good point.
Doesn't matter if it wasn't, because it was then, like that's it, man. There's some really great cinematography in Tombstone. And, I just just a quick note, I had to throw it in there, man. There was some great shots. Like after he does that admittedly slightly cheesy, and hell's coming with me. You tell him I'm coming, and it's a little wrung out, but like,
I liked it.
Right after that, they cut to this great shot of like, when he's starting the Vendetta ride and it's like four of them, kind of coming up over this rise. The sun is like right on the horizon and it's like all of them all the actors are silhouetted and it's just absolutely gorgeous, man. And so classic Western, really great stuff.
Totally.
Yeah.
Some of the other shots had just some great background scenery of the American Southwest that were just really great, man. I
really liked the selfie in the window when they get off the train thing. That was a cool shot.
Right.
That was cool. Yeah, that was really cool. When there's a scene when they're doing the Vendetta ride and somebody smashes a guy in the face with the butt of his gun. And it is like so graphic. I don't know why. It just like it leapt out at me. And obviously you guys remember it too. Cause it's like, it was in slow motion and it's like, you just like see the guy's nose break, see the blood spray everywhere. And then it's like, you see the dude fall off the back of the horse in slow motion and you're just like, ow, man, that had to hurt like hell, dude.
Yeah. There may be more, there may be more pistol whipping in this movie than any movie made. Like the amount of pistol whipping that goes on in this film. I feel like every other scene, somebody's getting whacked in the head with the fucking butt of a pistol, man. Like it's just...
Because that's really Wyatt Earp's thing. Like he didn't really kill a lot of people until like around this period in his life,
Right.
I like the addition of kind of like Doc Holliday's, partner and then all of the wives. It was an interesting addition to the film. It wasn't as common in a lot of Westerns to my knowledge where the wives are around. It's more dude oriented. So it's interesting that they kind of sprinkled that in there.
Yeah, I really I like that as well. And then, if you dive into Wyatt Earp, the women have a even larger presence in that film and they sort of explore that like a little bit, which is cool. But yeah, I definitely like that as well. It was good to see that. I wanted to see more of it. I really liked Dana Wheeler Nicholson. She was great as Maddie Blaylock.
Yeah.
And her sort of like, descent into laudanum opium hell is like really great,
Yeah.
Smashes the guy with the butt of the gun. There's some great lines in this movie that are like,
it's some fantastic lines.
Not great just because like, well, there are. I mean, not just because like Val Kilmer said them and it's Doc Holliday, but just because they're good, man. Like there's a part where they do the shootout at the river and Turkey Creek Jack Johnson says, he's like, "Why are you doing this? You're so sick." And he's like, "Wyatt's my friend." And he's like, "Hell, I got a lot of friends." And Val Kilmer just says, "I don't."
I love that. Yeah.
And it's great, man. There was really an interesting kind of funny little thing I noticed this time around. When they go to Henry Hooker's ranch, Heston says, "Oh yeah, they had to pull it. They had to turn in their or they had to make a stop here. Their boss actor got hurt, and they had to tend to him." And I was like, "Boss actor?" I was like, "What the hell is a boss actor?" I don't think I've ever heard that term in my entire life. I thought that was pretty funny.
It's a good way to describe Billy Zane, though.
He's a boss out in that respect. Yeah, totally.
He's a boss actor, man. I'm down.
Yeah, he is.
Well, St. Crispin's Day.
St. Crispin's Day. There was also like there was another Henry Hooker's Ranch part that was really weird to me that like I noticed it this time around as well. And it's again when Dana Delaney and Boss Actor are there. Mm-hmm. And there's like this exchange with Wyatt and Josie, and then like they pan over to the wagon, and like Sherman McMasters is like, "Okay, you're all set," and then he walks away, and I was like, I don't know, it just had this like 1950s gas station attendant kind of vibe to it that I thought really was weird, and it really did not fit in the movie at all. You know, he's like, all set. I, cleaned your windshield and like checked your oil and did your tires. Like, I don't know. It was just funny. It was just something that jumped out at me, so I wrote it down.
Well, those scenes were directed by the original director, so maybe that's why they didn't fit.
Oh,
that's true.
Maybe, yeah.
That's true. And then the thing that was also weird was that like McMasters had a cool role in the movie, and I was into, Rooker, and then it was like he changes the oil and does the tires at the ranch, that scene, and then like the very next scene is like the next morning, and like homeboy drags like a body down the hill towards the ranch, and it's McMasters, and I'm like, wait a second, what did he like take off in the middle of the night to go get a beer, and like he got kidnapped and killed? Like I didn't like how they didn't really explain that. I thought it didn't do justice to the character.
Who's Masters again?
McMasters. Sherman McMasters was Michael Rooker. That's his character's name.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't get that. That didn't make any sense to me either. I couldn't figure out how he got from being the gas station attendant, as it were, to being dragged behind a horse and very dead and stinking dead. Even like they were all like, "Ooh," like
yeah, right. Like they were like repulsed by the whole thing.
Like he was like dead and bloated. Like so that kind of didn't make a whole lot of sense. It's like there were days that went on at that ranch or something that they just kind of edited down to like a seemingly sort of brief scene.
They were like, "We're running out of time, bro." Also, that happened at the ranch was like the source of like a lot of problems. Like, I'm so sick of seeing this in movies, and like, again, we had to see this in this movie. Like Doc Holliday's laying on the bed in the ranch, and he's like, "What's it like to wear that?" And so Wyatt takes the badge off, and we get the close-up shot of Wyatt opening Doc's hand and putting the badge in his hand and closing his hand around it, and then putting his hand over his hand. So
nobody does that in real life, by the way.
Oh yeah. That's part of my comment, Jarhigo, is that aside from when I do that with Jarhigo, that never happens in real life to anybody.
You gotta throw a little butt pat in the end too.
Yeah. No.
A tender little butt pat. Well,
I really dislike that, and I hated it that it was in that. I hated it that was in that movie. Hated it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Nobody has patience for that. The way you described it was perfect, where it's like he takes the badge off and then he puts it in his hand, then he closes his hand around it, and then he closes his hand around his hand, and that whole thing. Like that just doesn't happen. Like
ever.
Like at the most he would have like handed him the badge, and like Doc would have looked at him and been like, it appeals to be a badge.
I like it.
I really think talking about great Val Kilmer lines from that movie, just a couple that jumped out at me. When he does the whole like "I'm your Daisy" with Ringo in the middle of the street, and Ringo's just absolutely hammered, and he's like, "I want your blood," and they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna leave," and then he's like, "I'm your Huckleberry." When that scene gets through, I love, like, he walks down the porch, he does that whole thing with Ringo, and then when Ringo leaves, he walks back up onto the porch, sits down in the barber chair, and he goes, "Baba, proceed, sir." So good, man. So Kilmer, man.
Yeah.
Also,
my new favorite from that movie is he's playing piano in the bar with his soft Hungarian devil, and Thomas Hayden Church is like going on and on about
Stephen Stinkin' Foster,
and the whole Doc Holliday being like, "It's a nocturne." Frederick fucking Chopin. Love
so
that.
Good, man. Love that. I love that too, man. That's a really good one. Also, I don't know where, I can't remember exactly where it is. It's like part of the Vendetta ride, and he goes, "Indeed, sir, the last charge of Wyatt Earp and his immortals." It's so great, man.
Yeah.
Perfect timing, perfect everything.
I loved one of those montages where the like dude gets smashed in the face with a rifle butt, and another dude gets shot to shit, and then all of a sudden it's like a 10-second shot of like two dudes shaking hands. I never didn't quite understand the handshaking one. I was like, okay, cool, nice work shaking hands, boys.
Maybe because it was like they used like teamwork to like blow somebody away, so it was like a high. It was like the Western equivalent of a high five moment, kind of
old school high five.
Old school high five.
Confusing montage moments where something's just sort of like, yeah.
There wasn't a ton of action, really. It was a lot of montages and stuff, which is fine, but it was interesting that it was less focused on the action, considering that we were talking about it being a traditional Western.
Yeah.
That's it for notes. That's all I got.
That's it for Mulvey.
I can't recommend this film enough. It sort of came out at a time when, I don't know, I feel like I'm sort of doing like a rap here, but like, I feel like this movie came out at a time when Westerns were just sort of in like no man's land. There just weren't any. And now, 25 plus years later, it is a Western classic. Everybody loves this film. And rightly so, man. It's great. It's absolutely great. And I really wish that they had a little bit more money in a slightly better situation so they could have added that like extra 10% polish that I think would have made this even more legendary.
Agreed.
That's my final word on this movie.
Final answer. Are we ranking this thing?
Well, absolutely. We have to rank everything.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a 9.5.
Wow.
Yep. Not fucking around.
Benihana?
Yeah, this is a classic. It's got a lot of sentimental value to me. Love this movie. It's the one that sticks out in the sort of crop of Westerns that came out around the early 90s, late 80s. And I'm going to have to give this one a good solid 5 gilded mustaches.
Yes.
Ooh. Wow, dude. I like that a lot.
Out of 5. So, it's good.
She's a perfect one.
It's a great white whale.
I think part of me wants to abstain from ranking the movie just because I feel like I remember back in the day I had an ex who was obsessed with Blazing Saddles, whereas my preferred movie was Spaceballs. So because I didn't see Blazing Saddles growing up, it didn't quite have the same soft spot for me that like a Spaceballs did.
Sure.
In terms of Mel Brooks films. And so I kind of feel like my ranking for this is really skewed because it's a first viewing and because I've got 25 years of cinema, experience on top of it. And I don't like Westerns. So like, I think either I abstain from this and just like pass on it because I don't think it'll do justice to the film, or I give a ranking in the grand list of, algorithm and it ends up with like a 5-ish, which I don't think is accurate. So I guess like I feel like my view is way, way too skewed to be able to give it a legitimate ranking, if that makes sense.
Wait a minute. Are you saying your algorithm failed you?
No, I can give it a number. I just think it'll be a disrespect. I think you guys will feel it's a disrespectful number.
No, by this point, I know where I know how your algorithm works, and I was going to say that I guessed it would be like a 5 point something, maybe, or
Yeah, like I'm just looking at the 5s now, and I've got kind of like you mentioned Jackie earlier, the biopic, and Donnie Brasco.
That's a great movie.
All that kind of stuff. Thomas Crown Affair. So like they're good movies. It's just they're not for me. Fantastic film. So it's like a 5.2 on the algorithm.
Wow.
But I think the major caveat is that the algorithm is my personal taste in films, and because I don't particularly have an affinity for Westerns, it's going to skew a certain way. So I respect the ratings that you guys gave, but that's where it falls for me.
Fair enough.
And to be clear, a 5 is a good movie. So a 3 is a meh, a 4 is a borderline, a 5 is good, a 6 is really good, a 7 is great, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a good movie. I really enjoyed it, and it definitely is. It grew on me after finishing it and reading about it, and it grows on me still. So
There's a lot of material out there about this film, so there's lots of gold to mine in terms of like, you know, nuggets and stories and all that sort of thing.
And how did we die this week?
Okay, we all basically died on the Avatar O's situation.
In the same sequence.
In and around that, yeah. We all... Ben mentioned the Avatar O's. I made some like joke about it. You guys stabbed me to death, and then like I got pissed at Chad, and then like...
Oh, we kept interrupting.
Right,
you.
and then, yeah.
I died... You mentioned that you got stabbed to death, Kev, and I said like Julius Caesar, and nobody said anything. So that was when I first died, and the second time I died was mistaking Sam Elliot for not having a mustache in Ang Lee's Hulk.
Oh yeah, that was just a technicality.
Yeah, that's true. Wow,
that was the second death for me.
The first death for me was introducing Avatar into the conversation, but it went somewhere good, so I'm proud of that one. And then the second death I can't recall.
Oh my god! It was when you guys were making fun of me with the Avatar thing and all that, and then like I don't know, like I started talking about it, and then you tried to make another joke about it.
Oh, I did it to Tatanka.
Like no,
it was before Tatanka.
Yeah, it was before Tatanka. I don't know.
Yeah, that was savage, Kev. We're sorry.
It was savage. It's all right.
It was worth it.
Oh my god, good stuff.
All right, let's put a bow on this bitch.
Yeah, let's put a bow on this, man. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in and putting up with all our bullshit tonight. Thanks, folks.
Yeah, thanks, dudes. Thanks for recommending the film, Benny. It was great to have an excuse to watch it for the first time. I thought I had seen it, but I hadn't, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked it. I was, I watched it a couple of times, and the first time I watched it, I was like, oh man, I wonder how Chad's going to come down on this one. But, like I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if you were gonna vibe with it, or if like you were just gonna despise it and massacre it for me. So
be a whingy bitch about it.
So I'm glad you had a good time watching it.
I did, yeah, for sure. And I really enjoy that it's continuing to grow on me. I find that that's not very common. Usually it's like
it's a good thing,
one and done. But I like a good movie or a book that you got to revisit.
Definitely, man.
And then we got Raw Deal next week, dudes.
Yeah, this is our first Arnold movie.
Is it?
Oh my god!
Yeah, it's our first Arnold movie.
Yeah,
I'm curious if it just devolves into just all of us doing Arnold impressions.
It probably will.
That there will be some. I'm sure it's going to be hard to avoid, but
duh.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Thank you, Jarhigo. Best comment of the entire episode was that right there. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh my god. As always, folks, we will see you on another time.
Love you a long time.
Lacious on the Menjay.
I love that. That's going to wrap up this week's episode, folks. Next week, we're going to be talking about the 80s classic. Well, it's not really a classic, but anyway, Raw Deal with Arnold Schwarzenegger. This will be our first Schwarzenegger film, so we are all brimming with childlike excitement. You can find the show notes for today's episode in your podcast app of choice or at our website, ebd.fm/episodes/26. You can shoot us questions using the Twitter hashtag AskEBD. You can find me at Molverine on Twitter. That's right, folks. That's MOHLVERINE. Don't you forget it. Chad is at Chad Normal on Twitter. And, of course, Prototrope is at Jarhigo on Twitter. That's JARHEEGO. I'd like to take a minute and thank everybody so much for tuning into the show. It really means a lot to me and the boys. And if you'd like to support the show, there are two great ways you can do it. First, by rating and reviewing us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast muffins. Or you can tell someone to check out the show using your mouth and your words. Word of mouth is incredibly powerful, and it's a great way to spread the word of the show. Word of mouth is really powerful, and it's a great way to increase the audience of the show. I can't find it. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.